Mr. Bob Negen, it is a pleasure to have you back here on the Simplifying Entrepreneurship podcast today.
Well, Peter, it's always an honor to be with you. Yeah, I'm just glad to be here with you.
Yeah, and we're talking at the end of the last podcast and say we gotta do another podcast here because there's a lot of good content and stuff to go for. So today I'm really excited about our topic around the customer experience, and we're going to dig into something we touched briefly on in the last podcast, but the ADD model too. So let's
Sure.
let's start the conversation off around the customer experience and the ADD model, Bob.
Sure. So, anybody who's interested enough in being a successful business person
Mhm.
to listen to this podcast understands intuitively that the customer experience it's critical to your success. And if there's one thing that the pandemic has done is made the customer experience even more important. You know, expectations are up.
Yeah.
Loyalty is down.
Mm.
People have too many options for them to come into your business and have a lousy experience.
Yeah.
They don't have a good experience, they go away. And so, it's part of your success formula is, give your customers a great experience. But then, of course, the real question is, how do you give them a great experience? And there's all sorts of things that go into that, of course. But one of the most important things is your team. And if you want to create a team that feels empowered and feels excited about giving your customers a great experience, you need to create a great culture.
Yeah.
And in all the work, and we've worked together, so I've done a lot of work with a lot of retailers.
For sure.
One of the things that I found was I would have conversations with retailers and they would ask me questions about their team. What should I do about this? What should I do about that? What should I do about this? And, often I just know the answer and the answer's self-evident and it's obvious. But what I found, Pete, is I kept saying, ask your team.
Yeah.
Ask your team.
Yeah.
So from that realization, one day I said, I'm starting to sound like a broken record. Ask your team, ask your team. On the one hand, they're going, why should I pay you when all I have to do is ask my team? But ask your team. So we created a model. So my wife, Susan, Susan, of course,
I do.
and my business partner, we created a model called ADD. And ADD is an acronym for ask, discuss, decide. And it's more than just a problem solving model. It's an empowerment model. So when you get together with your team, anytime you have a problem or anytime you see an opportunity or anytime somebody on your team sees a problem or sees an opportunity, you put the ADD into action. So I'll just use an example from one of our clients. They were having problems with inventory integrity. They've got 7 stores, great stores, but inventory integrity was a real problem. Yeah. In fact, they were members of our Platinum Mastermind group. So they brought it to the Platinum Mastermind group. And Peter, my wife, Susan, has an enormous amount of experience managing inventory from her days at the department stores. Yeah. So Susan gave her 2 bits, which were super, super helpful. But then we said, go back to your store, get together with your managers and ADD this thing. Yeah. And while Susan brought them half the way there, when Heidi is her name, when Heidi got her team involved, all of a sudden it brought them home. No more problems. And here's the other thing is when you use the ADD model, people feel empowered. So there's this, it's this whole idea of let them help you plan the fight and they won't fight the plan.
Exactly.
So really what you're doing is you're creating a mastermind out of your team members. So Peter, how many stores do you have right now?
We have 2.
2. And how many employees do you have?
About 11.
11. So think about all of the energy and creativity and experience those 11 people have.
Love
And
that.
so, what I'm encouraging you and everybody who's listening to this podcast to recognize is that the more you tap into their energy, their experience, their desire to help you build Shootopia into the best business it can be, the more empowered they're going to feel. And the more they're just going to do a better job for you. And
Yeah.
it's just really turned into a powerful, powerful model.
I mean, I love that, and it's something that we have done for a long time now. We used to do offsite meetings quarterly, and now we're doing with my management team. We do offsite meetings instead of a day for a quarter. We now do half days every month,
Right.
so that we can get more quick information and be able to act upon that quick information and be able to sit around that table. And I haven't used the ADD framework, but we're going to start doing that for sure. And, from that perspective, we certainly go through that process. And then the big thing is when you have that great information that you actually act upon it, right?
Right. Well, that's exactly right. Ask, discuss, decide.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and so one of the things about the discuss, so if you do it in a monthly meeting, great.
Yeah.
You can make a decision right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you come back in the next month and, did the decision work?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
it didn't, rinse and repeat,
Yeah.
right? Until it
Mm-hmm.
works. But you can also do this on the fly. So many businesses have Slack channels
Yeah.
or Trello boards.
Yeah, we do.
So let's just, say a listener has an opportunity and they're thinking about, I'm thinking about doing this. So all of a sudden you can put it on your Slack channel. We'll just use that as an example.
Yeah, sure.
And say, we're going to talk about this for a week. Now, as the leader's job is to keep the first D, the discussion alive. But then if you have a time bound ending to it,
Yes.
if it's a nebulous sort of not, we're all sitting in a
Mm-hmm.
room, we're going to do this now. Then at the end of the week, you say, okay, this is what we're going to do. And then again, you get this rinse and repeat action,
Yeah.
but it's a way of constantly taking advantage of opportunities and solving problems.
Yeah.
And I love what you said, Peter, because it's very true. People, smart entrepreneurs like you, naturally and intuitively bring their teams along. But what we found is by having a framework,
Yeah.
you're a strategic
Yeah,
coach
for
guy
sure.
too.
Absolutely.
That's all Dan Sullivan does is
Yeah.
come up with frameworks and
Mhm.
tools,
Yep.
brilliant ones too. But when you have a framework or a tool like this, all of a sudden it makes the whole process easier because everybody understands what you're doing.
Exactly. Lays it out in a simple way. And I think that's one of the things both of us do in our businesses and helping our clients too, right, Bob, is give them
Right.
these frameworks and tools to move ahead. And one of the tools that we're using in proper communication, like you were talking about, is the leaders who are most of the listeners of this podcast, the leaders of our organization, is to keep that communication flowing. And one
Yes.
of the things that we've instituted recently was a daily stand-up meeting on Voxer, so that all of my management team basically Voxes me. For anybody who's not used to Voxer or hasn't heard of Voxer, it's like a walkie-talkie app. But
Right.
basically, they Vox in their 3 priorities and whether they made their 3 priorities happen from yesterday. So we have
That's
an
great.
accountability loop within our management team. Everybody knows what's happening because we're not all under the same roof.
Yep.
I work out of the house a lot, and we have a couple of different stores, and people are floating between. So, but this way, it gets everybody in the loop every day, and then we have our weekly meetings, and then we have our monthly meetings. So we're having a rhythm of this, and your little acronym of ADD allows you to insert that in so many different ways in whatever meeting structures anybody who's listening to this podcast have within their systems too. And
Absolutely.
it's not something that's only retail specific. This is something that every business owner needs to
Oh,
do.
absolutely. And, and there's other reasons for, and so I want to back up and talk to
Yeah.
all of your listeners.
Yeah.
What Peter just talked about was so important because, I can't tell you how many retailers or entrepreneurs I've worked with that just wait until the problem is a big problem to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And by having a rhythm in your business, a rhythm of communication, like Peter just described, all of a sudden you're nipping problems in the bud, you're identifying opportunities quickly. And, applaud you for doing that, because yes, this is the way to create a successful business that doesn't need you. One of my most popular new programs, Peter, is how to run a business that doesn't run you,
Yeah,
because that's what all entrepreneurs are looking for,
for
right?
sure. The
And
turnkey
part of that
business.
program
Hmm.
speaks to exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
You have to have a rhythm, you have to have meetings, you have to have structure. And when you do that, your people respond. And so yeah, I loved what you just said.
Bob, one of the things when we're setting up this whole idea of the customer experience and how this can be a part of the customer experience and all the stuff that we started off with, we come back and having these discussions with your team. The other way you can flip this is you can really have discussions with your clients too, and you can ask, discuss, and
Right.
go through that same process with your clients and with your wholesalers or your other distributors or anybody else who's helping you deliver your promise within your business. Right.
That's a great point, and especially right now because of supply chain issues.
Yeah.
I think that your point is really, really, really germane. It's really the idea of creating an informal mastermind.
Yeah.
Well, in the case of your team, it's more formal
Yeah.
because you're doing it every week or every month. But really, this whole idea of ask, discuss, decide. There was somebody in the Platinum Mastermind group, a charter member years ago, and he had a pet store,
Mhm.
and his whole thing was one quarter. His goal was to increase his margins by 3 points. And in the pet business,
Big.
that's hard work.
Mhm.
But he did it. And what he said was, he went to all of his vendors and said, this is what I'm trying to do. How can I help you? And how can you help me? It was really ADD.
Yeah.
And, some of the people played along, some didn't.
Yeah.
But rather than just being a chump and saying, I need a discount, he was like, look, I'm going to do this. Are you going to be my partner?
Yeah.
So they created these little alliances, these small little mastermindy things.
Yeah.
And 3 points when you have several stores and doing,
Big
several
dollars.
$1 million
Mhm.
turns out to be real money.
Yeah. And I mean, I did the same sort of thing when our Mount Forest store that we have several years ago. I actually brought in all of my key vendors into a room and we sat down and we talked about 5 different locations that I was looking at the time. And they had never really done that. And I said, well, I'm a collaborative kind of guy. I want to get everybody in together. You guys are my
Right.
partners in this. You guys are our stores. You understand how we operate. So come, we'll discuss. We spent a half day talking about these different things, what I wanted out of the new location and where they thought the biggest opportunity was for their brand. But what that ended up doing is that ended up giving us a wonderful store that's still doing well today and really surviving and thriving. So from that perspective, it all started at that meeting of getting those people together. So I love this ADD model, Bob. I love the idea of collaborating with your team, with your clients, with the other suppliers that are involved in your business. And I think you've really hit something here. That's great.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
It's just the rule of reciprocity.
Yeah, sure.
If any of your readers want to listeners want to read a great book, Influenced by Robert Cialdini
That's a
is
great
a
one.
great book. And he talks a lot about the rule of reciprocity.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they say in that book is that social anthropologists contend that we humans as a species are the only species that proactively build webs of indebtedness.
Yeah.
And that idea that you just hit on with your vendors, with your team, with your customers. This is the way for small businesses to compete, not just compete, but to really, really do well in the shadow of the big brands.
Mm-hmm.
We have our own competitive advantages.
We do.
And it's our job to take advantage of them.
Yeah. Love that, Bob. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
We're coming to the top of our time here, and I want to get a chance for you to let everybody know how they can reach out to you. How do they get a hold of Bob? How do they learn more about WhizBang training?
Sure. Thank you, Peter. I appreciate that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So if you liked what you heard, you can go to WhizBangTraining.com. There is an H, WhizBangTraining.com, and sign up for our free tip of the week. Every week you'll get a retail tip that is applicable to any service business
Yeah, for
also.
sure. For
And
sure.
every Sunday, you'll get a video blog. And so that's just the way to start, is to get on our list and start to dabble in what we teach and how we think.
I've been on
If
it
you
for
want to get a
years. It's a great list.
well,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. No,
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
And also, you can email me. My email address is bob.negen, Negen is how you spell my last name, at whizbangtraining.com. And I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, that's great, Bob. Thanks so much for spending some time with me here today on the Simplifying Entrepreneurship podcast. It's been a pleasure to see you again.
All right. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, make it a great day.
I will.